Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the quickfire demand generation and ABM video series, or at least that's what we aim for. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Cassandra Gulia, who is a channel and ABM marketing leader at Entrust. And looking through your LinkedIn profile, Cassandra, not only do you have a great track record, but you're one of the most versatile ABMers I know with all the tools that you can use. And also, I'm really excited to chat with you today because I can see you've got almost like a futuristic approach with ABM in terms of like you're looking at the Web3 space and things, or you have done in the past as well. But it would be great to get a little intro from you before we kick off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate the intro, and I probably can't state it any better than you, but yes, I would say kind of my foray into ABM was probably around circa 2016, 2017 at Lumen Technologies, where funny enough, the onset of it was with respect to customers and, making sure that we are retaining customers. And so not in a kind of net new logo kind of for that kind of an objective, but really for a customer success kind of ABM play, if you will. But I think it's an extremely important, part of the marketing mix in terms of strategic reception, and the conversion rates speak for themselves, especially now with a lot of companies that are wanting to get into some larger accounts. These are complex selling consultative decisions that are being made, and they require buying groups and teams, often dispersed and distributed workforces around the globe. And so you need kind of either a platform or a toolkit for how to address their buying cycle and the way that they interact with one another on these major decisions when it comes to upgrading their tech stack or what have you. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited to get into a little bit more detail about ABM and kind of what has everybody buzzing around ABM.
But no, what you said there was amazing. Not just the fact that you've been in it since 2016, but which is an impressive time, because ABM is, although it's been around for a long time, it's trending now. It feels like it's trending now, but like the existing customer approach, like customer retention and expansion, I think that's often missed, because everyone, when they're new to ABM, often focus on the net new accounts, and the customer expansion is so important. But to quickly run you through the viewers through the rules, Cassandra in this case will be given a set of questions to respond to, all about ABM and demand gen. The questions have come from or been adapted based on the data we collected at Mixed Reality Rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest headaches with ABM are. And Cassandra, let's say, because we're big time now, we have started to include previous guest questions. I'm joking, we're not that big. But I'm going to pull up the questions. Are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So question one came in from Sarab Sanghi at IGT Solutions, and I love this question so much because it's very timely. But he asked, what is the right time for an organization to adopt an ABM approach?
So this is a very good question, and I think it really depends on the organization. I hate kind of saying that, but the one thing that is striking about ABM is that it's not built in a silo. It's not a marketing initiative. It is a cross-functional one where the buy-in from the senior leadership team, as well as sales and their leadership team, is really, it is imperative, because you have to be aligned on the accounts that you're going after. And if sales, for example, is in a territory model, they may not have the same accounts that the marketing folks are going after. So there's that kind of, there has to be that interlock, I guess. And it's really important to be in lockstep with sales when kind of developing these strategies. So I would say organizationally, there has to be, number one, an emphasis and a desire to see the benefits of ABM across the board. And the teams have to have a synergistic orientation around the pursuit of ABM, because it is a full kind of end-to-end sales and marketing effort, and it requires alignment across the aisle from marketing and sales and all the other supporting groups that are in essence going to work on getting opportunities in pipeline and so forth. And so I would say organizational alignment is critical. I would say, unfortunately, though, sometimes, organizations are not as avant-garde. They're not as much, I know for example, I've seen several organizations now even just recently, oh, we're standing up our ABM function. This is now our net new FY26, goal. We're trying to really, scale up, bring on new talent to support this effort. So for some, that is kind of the go-to-market strategy where they've got a definitive kind of plan to go after it. Although I would say, as I mentioned earlier, which is a little bit kind of unorthodox in my introduction to ABM, was kind of like, well, how do we get these accounts to not churn? And how are we going to build retention, cross-sell, upsell motions, and then, to your point, Sam, expansion of these accounts that we can fully see the true share of wallet, grab the best customer lifetime value, gain the most monetization from these critical accounts. And so sometimes it's kind of like a last ditch effort. I mean, and I've seen this at the highest scale. I mean, companies that are massive that have looked at customer experience, customer success as a churn mitigation strategy, and ABM as their way of how we can kind of penetrate these accounts to gain better clarity around what they're up against, what are their challenges, and how do we ultimately save them so we don't lose them. So it's a really strange, I think most companies now, they're doing it the right way. They're doing it from we're looking to bring on net new business. It's a company initiative. We've got buy-in from the highest levels of leadership. But for companies that, maybe were starting earlier on, they were just looking at a really strategic way to kind of, stop the bleeding at a high level. And ABM seemed to be the way to go about it at its early inception, So, yeah.
I quite like that, though, like what you're saying about focusing on existing customers first. Like, sure, it can drive new business, but it's just, I think it would be easier to, or arguably quicker, you could see tangible results quicker to use your words, to stop the bleeding. That's a great term, actually.
Yeah.
Just showing them a bit more love and seeing what impact that does and how it affects retention. No guest has kind of had that approach. Yeah, and I quite like that. Question 2, though, because I'm conscious of time, came in from Matt Conway at TX1 Networks and Katie O'Neill from Noetic. Now, they both had a similar question, so I've amalgamated it together. But they asked, what is a simple way, and it's quite fitting based on what you said about needing alignment, but what is a simple way to explain to sales all the great work marketing has done without kind of overcomplicating it and getting into the details, I imagine?
Well, I think, to be fair, right? I mean, especially if this is something that you're trying to scale, you've got I've worked at organizations where we've had thousands of sales people versus teams that are smaller than 30 people. So scale is an important consideration when you're working kind of with a larger organization. But even with a smaller organization, you want to have a benchmark of kind of education and understanding around what ABM is and what are the goals, what are the KPIs, what are the, what makes it different than kind of your straight up, marketing automation, which was what marketers have been doing for so long. And now we're trying to kind of pivot with this ABX strategy. But really it's about, I think, giving them kind of like just a presentation, for lack of a better word. I want to say just a kind of a cheat sheet, not even a presentation, because I love slides and I'm all about giving all of the details because sales tends to, as I'm sure other fellow marketers know, they ask a lot of questions. They often ask the best questions, and you want to prep them and give them kind of like a briefing that is going to answer to everything. If you have the time, I would say put together a small deck, 10 slides or less, that kind of goes after all of the main key points with ABM. And quite frankly, right now, I mean, there's just a saturation of information online and just all over the place, and especially ABM Answered, right? And so, good plug. But I think, do the research, put together some talking points or some questions or just a kind of a cheat sheet, a one pager that sales can really just kind of take their time looking through. And then if there's any questions, hold like kind of a meeting, to a kickoff call to kind of discuss kind of the tenets of it. And that should help, demystify it a bit. I think the other thing is just keep it to the application in terms of what does it mean for sales? Like, what's the impact to them? What are we needing from the sales motion? What's good for me? Because that's what they're going to care about. I mean, they're going to care about the low-hanging fruit. And the compelling thing to say to them is, look, we're going after these accounts and these contacts that are showing high intent. They're the ones that have raised their hand or are in the process of raising their hand. And we're going to have the highest chance of conversion and success. So we want to keep you selling and limit all of your other non-selling activities so that you can focus on these accounts and increase your win rates. Always make it about like how it's going to help them, because ultimately that's what they're going to be motivated for. And that's, that's everybody's motivation is, where do what is it for me, and what's my role in this kind of circle of ABM, or cycle or life cycle of ABM, I should say. But yeah, I think keep it simple, but give them something. We're marketing, so we always have to have kind of marketing to support what we're saying, right? We have to always come with collateral or something prepared, something that will speak to some of the things that we're trying to, that we're on.
I think you've nailed that question, but from two angles, which was beautiful. The first is the why, and like the visualization to ABM. Here is the impact of what your commission checks are going to go through the roof if you work with us. Great. But also what I liked is at the start, you mentioned kind of the how, and more I'm becoming a fan of when creating a message, saying what something isn't, not just what something is. And you said this is, maybe start with, hey, this is traditional lead gen. This is what we were currently doing, because we might be naive to think that sales knew what we were currently doing or where leads came from. But like, here is what we are currently doing. Here's what ABM isn't, basically. ABM, and here's what ABM is. That's superb. Question 3 came in from Juan Martinez at Autodesk, and he asked, what AI tools or processes do you use in your ABM execution? Because I know they're very big on it over there.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because I feel like AI now, as we know, it's been like the buzzword of 2024, 2025. It's probably not going to stop anytime soon. It's embedded in a lot of these technologies that we use within the ABM tech stack, and just even kind of the one-off tools, the a la carte tools that folks can kind of utilize. And so I would say, intent, there's just a lot of AI centric kind of built-in kind of intelligence in Sixth Sense, Demand Base, Bombara. They've got even chat assistants to help you when you're building campaigns now. I mean, you've got to have all of that kind of in your wheelhouse. So I think that's really good. If you're looking for something that's more of like a kind of standalone, I've worked with Conversica AI. They're kind of more of a, like you mentioned, kind of a traditional like demand gen, lead gen tool, where they are, warming up kind of cold leads via a nurture campaign via these kind of targeted emails. And then the ones that kind of respond to it get to be, elevated to an SDR or an SC or a sales executive. But yeah, I mean, it's good because what AI can help to do, and I think this is what's really the key point, is AI can take all of your low intent leads and warm them up in an automated fashion. Not perfectly, because people are really sensitive to AI now. They know when they're talking to a bot. So people are not that, they get it. But what it does is it takes, once again, your sales team off of these cold leads and lets them work on the warmer stuff, while marketing does what it does best in the automation space and can really kind of like warm them up for you on the back end and kind of, funnel them up, or for the lack of a better word, it's kind of triaging them. So maybe you're with this Conversica AI, it's not as popular as it used to be a couple of years ago, but there's probably some other solutions too. The prospect or the customer goes through like a 5 to 6 week cadence of emails that are generated by the Conversica AI. And then if they convert within that time frame, then they get moved up as, I believe, I think we qualified it as kind of like an MQL. Sometimes people say MQA for marketing qualified accounts for ABM. But really, essentially, it helps sales kind of only go after kind of the lower hanging fruit and not have to deal with some of these really cold leads that are time wasters. And, so I would just use it in that capacity. If you have a large density of accounts, I'm talking like tens of thousands of accounts, and you're trying to figure out who are the ones that are most interested in what I'm selling, then use AI to help to try to filter that out through a campaign or a series of campaigns. And usually that is a good way to kind of warm them up, drive some brand awareness with little investment, little time wasted from sales and from the SDRs.
That's awesome. So I've never heard of that tool, so I'm going to look it up after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so almost cutting out account bloat. Cassandra, you've been This has been awesome. Like, you're tackling all these questions from different ways that I haven't heard before, which is awesome. Question 4 was from Janelle Amos in Elevate Growth. She asked, what are the top 3 things you would prioritize if you were building a marketing strategy from scratch?
Well, I think this has been kind of my mantra as I've kind of progressed throughout my career, my now 15 years, I guess, of marketing experience, is you've got to have both a mixture of quantitative and qualitative inputs. So what does that mean? It means I am very data driven. I really use data in my day to day to make certain kind of assumptions, fact-based assumptions based on what I'm seeing in whether it be, Rev Up or Bombara with, intent or Sixth Sense and kind of just all of the different, demand based with the buying groups that they have now. There's ways to kind of aggregate some of the data points of, an account or a series of accounts, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many. But that alone is not enough. Have that kind of bilateral relationship with sales and all the other cross-functional teams that touch those accounts. So it's always good to kind of have like a debrief with them. Like I'll put together my data-driven approach and strategy from what I've researched so that I'm not coming to the table empty-handed for them. I will say, okay, these are the segments. This is what these are the accounts. This is what I think this is the messaging. This is the timeline. This is the spend. And this is what we're going to do. But then I always want to run it by, my marketing peers, as well as marketing leadership and sales and the sales team, who are going to be the ones that are going to be really, going to be working these accounts. Marketing is going to be like kind of running the show on the back end, but they're going to be in the field messaging, talking to these customers, these prospects, to really try to win business. So I think I always try this, and maybe this may not be correct, but I always try to do my research, look at strategically what I think makes sense, given my business acumen. And then I always vet it with the people that I respect the most, and my sales leaders as well, because they're very attuned to kind of their market needs and just all of the things that are happening, that may be happening from a discovery standpoint at these companies, at these organizations, that marketing may not have intel into. Marketing may know, oh, they, read our white paper, or they downloaded this asset, or, they showed up to this event. That's all great. But what if, company XYZ is going through a merger? What if they're going through, a reorg or something that is fundamentally shifting kind of how they're operating? Those are really important, inputs that, we're not going to know unless you have, there's some other kind of heads in the room that are able to give you some of that, that intelligence.
So one is data then, and then the other 2 would be alignment. So from sales and marketing, and the third, what would like a third kind of final point be? Like, do you have one?
I would say, I think that those are the 2 big pieces. With sales, you've got to be able to have kind of that one-to-one time with the key accounts to know, okay, for example, if may not be the right time to run that campaign. So let's say I come to the table with an idea. It may be a perfectly good and make perfect sense, but if, let's say, the timing is wrong, like, for example, they're not looking for new vendors. Yeah. They're not interested. What's their cycle? Sometimes, there's a good discovery question. It's like, what does your buying cycle look like? Is it this quarter? Is it next quarter? Is it 30, 60, 90 days? Or is it next year? That's really important, because timing is everything, right? I mean, especially in ABM, it's about talking to people at the right time, with the right stuff, having the right content, and the right people in the rooms. Timing is of the essence. It's crucial. It's a crucial part of the buying cycle. And it's one of the things that you could have all the other things that are working for you, but if the timing is wrong for them and they're like, no, we're not, like, senior leadership is not going for it. We don't have the budget right now. We've got to push, we got to pull the plug. We got to refigure, recalibrate for next year. You got to kind of listen to the customer. And that's where I think, as you mentioned, it's look at your prospects like you look at customers. They're people too. It's the same thing. You're just talking to a person, right? They're talking to a person. You have to listen to that person and what they're saying. And you may have your sales goals, but ultimately, if that customer is not, like, I have my own budget. If I'm not in the buying season, it doesn't matter what the vendor's throwing at me. It ain't happening. So it is so critical to listen. And sales knows this. I mean, the best salespeople are not the best talkers. Although they talk, they are the best, they are great at speaking, they listen and they can feel kind of what's happening. They understand what's going on in that customer or that prospect's business so that they can, not waste their time pitching something that's not going to make sense, at that time.
For sure. So the third one, and I think it's totally valid, and it comes back to data. So they are the
Yes.
core components of ABM, but it's like almost cutting account bloat, right? It's like you don't
Yes.
want to have spending being inefficient. Okay, Cassandra, we've got a few more questions. We can do quick fire, but are you okay for time?
I am. I'm good as long as you are, and I will try to keep it short and sweet.
No worries. We've got a few nice ones coming up. So question 5 came in from Drew Smith, CEO of Attributor. The man is a genius when it comes to attribution. He blows my mind.
It's going to be tough.
What his actual question is, what is the best way to do ABM without buying an expensive tool like 6 Sense or Demandbase? So not attribution related at all, really.
So I feel like I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I look, you want a systematic approach to executing on ABM, you got to have a system, point blank. And yeah, they're not perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of, if you go on Reddit, people are complaining, the data is this, it's not, 6 Sense is not delivering as much as we thought it would, and it's so expensive, and it's more expensive than Demandbase. Every system is going to have its bugs. Look at Salesforce. Salesforce is the predominant, CRM. And so if you want to manage customer relationships, you've got to have Salesforce. You got to have something in your tech stack to be able to up level, right? And to be able to move the needle and scale up. And I think it depends on the size of your organization. If you're small, maybe less than, I want to say a startup, let's say a startup, maybe you can get by without ABM, without a tool. But if you're looking and you're like an enterprise and up, it's a necessity. It's something that you got to put in it's got to be a line item in the budget, and you got to make the move to get it.
Yeah, I think that Drew was kind of more focused on the for scale ups and stuff, just starting with ABM.
Yes. Well, actually, let me preface that. So I would say before going all in with ABM, there are some other ways to get around it, like doing pilots. And I'm a fan of pilots, right? Because what it does is it builds a business case for the organization to then further go to their leadership and say, I mean, he's the CEO, but he can say, look, we did this pilot. Maybe it's to the board. We did this pilot. We got 70% more conversions, and we've got a lot more deals in pipeline because we did this pilot. Now we have a business case to say we're going to put the budget to work with an ABM platform. And so that gives them the credibility and the clout to be able to then make that case, which I think we did that at Lumen with Bombara. So we did a pilot. We didn't kind of go all in buying the solution because at that time it was pretty expensive. And we wanted to see, is this going to even make a difference, right? And so it did. So we did about, I think it was like a 6 to 8 month pilot where we were tracking different prospects that were surging on different product pages of our website, and then put them in different cohorts and then marketed to them kind of the old fashioned way through, I think we were using Marketo at the time. So basically meaning you're using them not as an ABM play platform, but you're using their intent data to create your own plays in your marketing automation tech stack, whether it's Marketo or Pardot or Eloqua. Not a fan of Eloqua. HubSpot. HubSpot's got a lot of good intent too. So HubSpot is a great all-in-one tool, especially if you're a small business and you're kind of cost conscious. I feel like you can get through a lot with HubSpot, and they give you, they're really investing in AI, and there's a lot of intent that's built into their platform. You can see kind of all the assets that the prospects looked at, how many calls they've had. I think just, there are ways around it. You can do a pilot with another, with a company, do some sort of just a small campaign. If they have a price, if there's some kind of offering that they can provide, instead of going on a full-term commitment with 6 Sense or, a Demandbase, or now there's so many. There's even, I was looking at this other one the other day. I can't remember. I think it starts with a C, but Demandbase is the legacy. They've been around. They were the pioneers of ABM. And then, 6 Sense came in and really, I think disrupted the market, and now they're kind of the favorite. I feel like if you have the budget to spend for it.
For sure. And that leads actually nicely, Cassandra, you're kind of doing my job for me, into the next question, which was from Melissa Alonso on what's your practical advice to, and you've kind of answered it with the pilot, but to get buy-in from leadership to start ABM. So I remember having a conversation with someone at Christmas, and they were given, the head of marketing was given the objective to grow by X amount. And it was up to her what route she wants to take, and obviously she wanted to explore ABM. But so to be a bit more specific with Melissa's question here, like how would you kind of pitch ABM?
Yes.
Like you mentioned, a 6 to 8 month pilot, for example.
Yes.
Like, yeah, maybe you can give some kind of numbers around that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I would say, yeah, that would probably be, if there is budget, that would be step one is, and there's a desire, a need, somebody like on the sales side or on the marketing side is really emphasizing, look, this needs to be in our go-to-market strategy. That's probably the first lever. But there are kind of other ways of getting at those accounts that are ABM like, but not formally ABM, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, for the last couple of years, I've been in kind of more of a field motion. And I've been doing a lot of in-person and virtual events. Okay. So what you can do is you can just, and this is like old school sales where they give you a list of accounts and, marketing has to say, yeah, this makes sense. Or, vice versa. Marketing comes with some accounts and then vets it through sales, however, which way you want to do it. And then you say, look, we're going to target these 5 accounts and we're going to put them through this omni-channel marketing campaign. It'd be, maybe a paid element, social, email, and then it's going to, materialize into, and not email automation, I would say, because that's using marketing automation is really for all of your low value, it's low value, low customization, low personalization leads. People want to talk to people. That's why ABM is so important, because it's a person to person thing. As much as it's not like, oh, I'm going to send them an email. Like nobody opens their email. Like you're not getting a good open rate. You've got to enable your sales team you got to give them emails, like different emails that they can send that are custom to their contacts. And then say, look, we're doing this wine tasting. We're doing this, dinner. We're doing a roundtable discussion. We're doing an end user group. We're doing some sort of creative, like food related, because who doesn't like food, right? Everybody wants to go to something that has food. Or we're going to give you a gift if you join us for this webinar. Incentivize them. Do it with a small group of accounts. That's like quote unquote the pilot. And you enable sales. You work like closely with sales to kind of execute on this. And I mean, that's what I do in field as well, in some cases, or what I've done in the past. And then what you do is you measure the impact. So you say, because with it, and here's the other thing with ABM, I think that's something that I need to really touch on, because there's a misconception. With ABM, you are not going after, you need to identify what accounts are the highest value accounts. You're not going after low value accounts. And so what that means is you need to figure out what is the intent to buy, but also what is the lifetime value, the ACV going to look like? Like, are we trying to pitch a $100,000 solution to this client? And do we have a real chance of getting them to buy? Because if it's a really cheap solution, you're not going to do an ABM strategy, because ABM is costly. It's costly from a tactical perspective. It's costly from a resourcing perspective. And it's a longer life cycle, a sales cycle to get them to buy. So you're not going after, like, let's say you have a portfolio of services. On the low end, you've got the subscription-based services that are like $50 a month. Then you've got this, like I said, it's like $100K. I know that's a wide range, but think of it that way. You're not putting your resources with ABM for those little, like those cheap accounts, the things that, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's really what it is. Because ABM, you don't have unlimited dollars. You've got to be really strategic with how you spend the money. And so you've got to go after the really high MRR, monthly recurring revenues that are going to really yield a long-term customer value. Otherwise, don't go after them. And that's why also with ABM, you're going after a lot of the different buying, like the buying group, but you're going after the influencers and the decision makers. You're not going after like the people that have no buying, they're not in the equation, so to speak. So it is still very much a segmentation strategy. And I think that's where maybe there's a disconnect, because it's like not all accounts are created equal. No, they're absolutely not. You need to figure out what are the accounts that are going to drive the greatest business value and go after those alone, because otherwise you'll be wasting your money on accounts that are not worth it. I hate to say that because that's not a very customer centric view. And I'm all about customers, but I also know that, companies look at profitability. And if you're looking at your customer like this is not a profitable customer, that's not an ABM customer.
But
You know what I
no,
mean?
for sure. So it's like the practical advice is actually the easy part. It's like, hey, we
Yeah.
can run this with 5 accounts. So I think five's actually a nice number.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I'd probably lean between like 8 and 15. But five, you can do some damage with five.
Yeah.
But like it's more of a mindset thing of explaining or visualizing, just like you did with sales earlier, to leadership that this is where we should be spending our marketing dollars on the most expensive accounts because they have the highest yield, as opposed to what we were previously doing again, which is going after everyone. And if we are
Right.
concentrated, we will get a higher yield per investment in marketing. This
Absolutely.
is
Yep.
phenomenal. Cassandra,
Yeah.
I've got to jump very soon at
Yes,
quarter 2 for
absolutely.
another call, but I do want to ask my favorite question of all time, which came in from Emily York Goldney, which is, if you had unlimited budget, what would be your best in class marketing or ABM campaign to attract, let's say, a top one account? Like, and please
Wow.
be as unconventional as possible. I don't know if you've seen anything crazy out there, but yeah.
Oh, this is a good question, actually. Oh, this is really funny. Okay. Okay, very quickly. This is a funny story. Look, so I would say we're the kind of the outlandish kind of just completely just out of your mind, like blowing your mind kind of ideas when it comes to campaigns. I think really they live in really the really high tech space and also on social. And like TikTok, all of that is very, it's all about like the flash, the glam. So I recall distinctly, and I'll try to cut this really short, it's not really ABM, but it kind of is, because what we did is we basically, what you're trying to do with ABM is, even from a marketing standpoint, like you're trying to win these people. Like you are trying to sell them on your business, right? So I was doing, and this was with respect to kind of like a PR, it has a PR influencer angle to it. When I was working at Bitcoin Depot, we were trying to get Young Thug to do a campaign, like a social, like a community kind of oriented campaign around Bitcoin. And I said, look, he's not gonna budge for less than 100K to do like any sort of anything with us, and that's just 100K. Like that's nothing. Some marketers, they're in like millions, and they have millions and millions of dollars in budget. And I did, in terms of like Google ad spend, I had a lot of budget, but it went really quickly. But what I would say is, like when you're looking at spending a lot in ABM, sometimes you're looking for like a brand advocate, like someone that is going to, like for example, a good example is Nike right now, right? Like they're going with Kim K, they're with Skims. Okay, I don't know if people probably heard about this, and they do this from time to time. They did it with Michael Jordan back in the day, and you got to make bold moves like that, and that's going to win you a lot in the end. This is my example is a really small one when it comes to a brand partnership, but really that is really a high profile way to do it, and you can infuse that in your ABM campaigns as well. But it builds brand equity. But I think what it comes down to is you have to be creative sometimes in your approach, and we're all about getting eyeballs on things, right? And so it's kind of like people go where the money is, they go where they're gonna have a good time. Throw them a party. Like there's so many different things you could do if money is no object. Certainly I've always had a budget. I've always had limitations, but I think, yeah, I would do something that's really integrated, GTM, a lot of different kind of channels. Just there's so much that you can really really do. But needless to say, we didn't win that deal with Young Thug because we couldn't settle on the right price. And now I don't know, maybe we would be able to, because I don't know, but like things have not been going so well for him in the last couple of years. But at the time he was at the height of his career. He was a big advocate of like crypto and just doing a lot of brand partnerships with a lot of cryptocurrency companies. But yeah, I don't know if that really answers it, but I think,
I think
look, yeah, you got to do bespoke, expensive, flashy, red carpet stuff. That's the kind of stuff that really people want to, they want to go to, because here's the thing. And this, I'll leave you with this. CEOs, C-level executives, they get invited to stuff all the time. What are you doing to stand out? what's in it for them. Sometimes it's even they can invite their spouse or they can invite their family member. There's other ways to kind of get them to show up, so to speak, like to some of these events, or if it's, whatever the campaign is. But I think you just got to always just be very creative, do something that nobody's done before to really make an impact. And I can't, I mean, there's always kind of this, we're in the attention economy. So whatever you can get to get that attention is going to pay in the end. It's going to yield a lot of dividends, for you. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of a random way to answer it, but
no. I think like to summarize, like the budget would go towards anything that's like gonna get eyeballs, which is ultimately marketing from your chosen account that is very relevant to them. So not just inviting them to a flashy event, but like a flashy event that is super specific to something that they would want to be a part of.
Yes.
I think that's good, and you
Yes.
you answered it on the money and like off the cuff. Like I'm sure if you like think about the creative side of things, like to add more time, you'd be able to come up with something. Cassandra,
And
the last.
it's many touch points. That's the other thing. It's not just a one and done. You've got to be like, you're almost like courting them. It's a courting process. So yeah, what you said.
Then and it's always going to be a longer process, never a one-off deal. Here's $10 million. The last question I'll ask you, Cassandra, is: do you have a question for our next guest?
I should have had a question for the next guest. Now I feel really, well, I'm curious to see, I guess I just want to listen to kind of what their, what their take is on it, because I think as ABMers, right, we all have our own spin. We have our own journey. We have our own, space that we've made in the industry. And so it's unique to everybody. And I think, I'm looking forward to kind of hearing what their take is on what their experience has led them to thus far.
So, sorry, I'm not 100% following. So, like specifically with like how they've ended up in ABM and how it's going for them. Okay, an honest teardown's like actually a really nice way to go about it. Okay, Cassandra, I'll ask that. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. It was a pleasure. Thanks, everybody.